Oh, we're on.
Are we starting?
Oh, I've started.
All right, we've already
I can
started.
trim it down. Don't worry.
No, it's all right. This is we'll just start. So
Yeah,
welcome.
just start.
You know, we're kind of like it's thrown me.
Have you got all phones turned off?
So all phones turned off.
I should do that now.
We just to let everybody know, we've been struggling to find the logo, and I've just told Mark to shove it in later, which he's going to do. We're at Creativity Works Preston again. Here's my little, you can't see this, but it's like pointed at the camera, right? My little visitor's badge. Because we were talking about struggling to find the logo, right? And what we're finding the logo for. What's this podcast called? Always good to know that the people who are on the podcast know what it's called. Well, in the latest episode of Therapy Today, which is a what people get who are training to become as a psychotherapist, they get this as being a member of the BACP. I read it page to page. When I did, just to let everybody know, because I'm very, very rude, I've not even introduced my guest yet, but Rebekah over here.
Hello.
Hello, Rebekah. It's like a...
long time no see.
Long time no see. It's a bit like an AA meeting, right? So we've got Rebekah here.
Yep.
I'll let you introduce yourself, but I remember when we trained, because we trained together...
We did.
I didn't open a single one of these, and we'd always sit and say, "Oh, have you got the latest therapy today? Yeah. Is it still in its cellophane wrapper? Yeah. There's about 20 of them in a pile. Yes, right. So, but,
I think I still have them somewhere.
Well, exactly. But since I became a lecturer, I thought, better read it.
Yes.
Because a lot of people don't like it because it's not a peer-reviewed magazine or a journal. It's just a lot of opinion pieces. But it's just what I like to call FFF, food for thought, right?
Nice.
Because it keeps you on the pulse of what's going on in the therapy world. So even though it's a little bit biased at times, it's worth reading. But the reason I've got said June episode of Therapy Today out is because there's a little bit about podcasts, and it says an inside look what podcasts you should be watching. There's one called Mind Over Chatter. What's the matter? Right? It's this one! Yay! So we're in the latest edition of Therapy Today.
Wow.
We're going virus. We're going viral.
Virus?
Jonathan said earlier on he's used to going viral. So, and then,
I am.
yes. And then every flip over to the next page, we have Tom Meaney's book, who is a regular guest on this podcast, and talks about his book a lot. So I'm on page 19, he's on page 20. Boom, people!
You've
boom,
made it.
Have it. Right, so that's that
Made
little
it.
bit. We have made it. So, a little bit of an introduction then. So we have two guests here today.
One who isn't called Jonathan.
Jonathan, one who's not called Rebekah. Right, okay, you're called?
Andrew.
Andrew. Now, who's Jonathan?
I don't know, but I remember when we were doing fish bowls and you were liaising it. And you said Jonathan then,
right.
So I think Jonathan's someone on my course.
Okay. Now, a couple of things there. Would you like to explain to the people here what a fishbowl is? Because when you said when we were doing fish bowls, they might be a bit confused. What's a fishbowl?
So basically, where am I looking?
Anywhere. Cameras all over the place.
So a fishbowl is essentially where two students are practicing being trainee psychotherapists and the client, and then the rest of the room are analysing and giving some input and feedback, some constructive, something helpful.
Okay.
And then the tutor, such as yourself, will also give some feedback, and then you'll switch.
Okay.
And it can be from 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes.
Okay. So one of the things that you think is very valuable within a fishbowl is for the tutor to give you the correct name.
Yes.
Right, okay then, right. So you're called Andrew.
Yes,
not
but
Jonathan.
in respect, we've only worked together, I think, twice.
Yeah.
So it's all good.
Okay, well, I deeply apologise.
That's all right.
And regrets, deep regrets. I will go home and journal about it.
I'm terrible
have
with
a
names.
Cry.
So.
No, that's fine. So, well, what happens on this podcast is what I want to do and what I plan doesn't actually go to plan. But you've just said something there which I feel is very pertinent, because this morning when I was reading the May edition of Therapy Today,
Okay.
it talked about fish bowls and giving and receiving feedback.
Interesting.
And how confusing that can be. So, we might as well just run with it.
Yeah.
Before we actually do what we were meant to be doing, which is introducing you properly. So, this article basically talks about the fact that when you're training, and you can kind of jump in on this as well, you do a fishbowl, you tend to get conflicting feedback of different people. So I'm just wondering what your experience of that has been like and what impact that may have had.
For me, I found that, it can be quite difficult sometimes because I'd have one tutor that would say, only give the feedback to me, not the client that you've just worked with, because we don't want to upset the client, which I understand. Yeah. But then another tutor will want detailed feedback to give to the student, so that can be quite conflicting sometimes. Okay,
so it's not only that's more in the delivery of the feedback, so that's not been consistent for you.
No, and so I found that quite challenging, but I've also found it challenging with the dual relationships themselves. So because obviously I'm friends with a lot of the people on my course, you've got to sort of bracket that, which is another subject we can go into. And then, just focus on, like, almost as if you've never met this person before and they're your client for the next 15 minutes.
Right, okay, then so there's a couple of things here. So one of these podcasts, we try to simplify the complex and we try to de-jargonise therapy, right? I use the term simplex, right, for that. Okay. So you said a few things. One, you said you're talking about dual relationships. Would you like to explain what that is?
Dual relationships. So that is basically, say, me and Rebekah are best friends, but she's also my supervisor. That would be a dual relationship. Okay. And it can cause problems. So if you've got a personal relationship with someone, it can be very hard to then go straight into the professional, where you have to set boundaries and follow ethics and things like that. So, so in relation to, like, say I've got a best friend on the course, and then I then have to be the trainee psychotherapist in the fishbowl being observed, it can be really hard.
Right, okay. So another term you use is bracketing.
Yes, so bracketing in the way that we were taught is basically if something comes up for me, maybe it's a trigger or a trauma that I can relate to with the client, it can cause disruptions and disrupt the flow of the progress between me and the client. So I have to bracket that and put it aside, put it to one side behind me, so that I can work with it.
I notice you always put it there.
Yeah.
Is that where it goes?
No, not necessarily. My hands just happen to go in that direction.
No, that's fine, yeah. But sometimes when clients do that, it kind of means something to them. It kind of is like a symbolic. You kind of put it there. Because when I bracket, I put it on a little shelf. Me too. And it's always there. Yeah. There's no shelf there, by the way, people, right? But there is a metaphorical shelf.
Yeah.
So,
I do the same. I think for me, I'm quite a visual person, so having that sort of space where it's not ignored, it's not buried, the idea that I can revisit it, but I mentally pop it on a little shelf.
There you go then.
I think I just imagine it's like a person stood next to me rather than being me.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. I'm also very visual as well. So.
And this is an interesting part of what I'm reading into. We talked about on the way here, like I'm attempting to do a PhD, and a lot of this is about the nature of consciousness, because everyone is so unique and different, and the experience inside here completely differently. And I think last time we met, I told you about me having a condition called aphantasia. Yes. It's not even a condition. I don't know why I called it that. It's just a different way of thinking, conceptualizing. So I cannot visualize whatsoever. Now, in consciousness studies, they've realized that most people are either fully visual, all their thoughts are visual, which to me, nonsense. Because I can't visualize it at all. Right? Some people are fully verbal, which is kind of more me. But then within that, there's like the question of, are you actually creating the words, or are you receiving the words? And some people can distinguish between those two, so that's a different thing. And some people are like more like unsymbolized thought, where it's like it's very hard to kind of articulate. And I had a client this morning who was like that.
Okay.
They were really kind of struggling to articulate their thoughts, so I had to kind of work with that. Okay, but luckily they were quite visual as well.
Right.
So I had to kind of get them to explain the pictures that were popping in their head. And
Interesting.
me not being visual felt very, very clunky. Because it was like, I'm trying to understand a person who's like very visual, I can't visualise at all, but it seemed to work. So it's about like, we have to work differently with different clients, basically.
Yeah.
So when we talk a lot about neurodiversity in terms of, for one reason I want to say the classics. Your classics, your ADHDs, but in essence, if you think about it, just from consciousness studies, everyone's got a level of neurodiversity because nobody thinks the same. And we just have that awareness when working with clients. Now I know that I'm kind of jumped topic and I forgot what we were actually talking about, but I just felt it was important to kind of like bring that up. So okay, so let's do what I was meant to do right at the beginning is introduce our two guests. I'll introduce myself in case anybody doesn't know. I'm Nigel, lecturer at the University of Lancashire, even though I'm not doing this podcast solely within that role. It's just one of my roles. Also a therapist, hence why I've had 3 clients this morning and I'm absolutely drained because, as you both can kind of verify, client work can be quite tiring because you're using a lot of like mental energy, and it's one of the things that I'm going to touch upon is this word vulnerability. Yeah. The client's being vulnerable, and you've got to show vulnerability yourself. So there's a lot of like quite energy zapping. So hence why I'm talking absolute nonsense because I've been on it all day. So anyway, we have with us. Round of applause, people. All right, we have Rebekah in the house. Boom! Would you like to introduce yourself, Rebekah? What it is you do, how you got there, what drew you to it, how you know this guy, etc.
So I'm Rebekah Cadman. I am a psychotherapist, a supervisor, and I've done some teaching and workshops, which I absolutely love. I got into it, so I was doing a lot of volunteer work. There was a lot of organisations that I'd worked with, and I witnessed a lot of very well-meaning people do harm. And so I thought, if I'm going to work in this space, I want to understand it, and I ended up signing up to do a psychology degree. But we had to pick an elective, and it was a counselling and psychotherapy elective, and it was like a light bulb went on, and I thought, why am I not doing this? So I collected modules like I was catching Pokemon and ended up with a combined honours degree. Went on to my postgrad and then on to my master's after that. But what I love about the work is that it just being able to be with someone and hold space for them and for them to feel like you were talking about being able to be vulnerable in that space felt really important to me. Yeah. And what I love about supervision is probably the same thing. I do love teaching. I love empowering the students, and for me supervision kind of encompasses that. So it's a safe place to talk about the things that you feel like, oh, that didn't work, or I'm not sure about that. Feel supported, but also to how does theory integrate into that? What does that mean? What's it like when you have a real human across from you and it's not just theoretical, and like you say, adapting to the needs of the client. So I really do love supervision because of that. Okay. And we studied together.
That's
Your poor
correct.
thing was
That's
afflicted
correct.
with me.
Yeah, we did. Rebekah finished a year before me because she was on it and I wasn't. But I don't know
about on it. I think that when I heard 100 hours and I planned to do the masters after, I ran out the gate so fast because I was terrified I wouldn't make it. Right. And even that has been something that was quite massively learning for me, in that I rushed out the gate and then I had to back up then because I was like contacting multiple places, and instead of giving myself that kind of building up process of like start with one placement, I was like looking at others because I'm like, you never know, they're so scarce. And so yes, I sort of had to like learn to like wind that down, and actually I think for me in hindsight it would have been better to take longer.
Right, so it almost feels like it was anxiety driven. I have to get this done.
And I think a lot of that was placements, and it's even harder now, but placements were scarce. There was a lot of competition to get a placement. I couldn't drive, so that limited geographically. I also had children, so I had to kind of fit so much into a small window. So I panicked a lot about not being able to secure that. And so I approached a lot and interviewed a lot, and then I ended up getting 2 at the same time. And suddenly I was then plunged into, actually, I think this is too much.
Okay.
So it might have been better if I pumped my brakes a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. So it felt like you'd bitten off more than you could chew, for a metaphorical way to put it. So I'm wondering, like, just like then for like the simplexing, right, and explaining to the listeners, which are the viewers and the listeners, what do you mean by placement?
Okay, so as part of the learning, once you've got to a certain point of your training, you get the opportunity to work with clients in a setting. It might be an organisation or a charity, and it's all approved. There's a whole process that they have to go through to be approved, and your clients are informed, obviously, that you're a trainee, but it's a way in which you get to actually experience not just what it's like in, when you were talking about the fishbowls, not just what it's like in those with your peers or those dual relationships, but what actual client work feels like. And for me, I think they were my biggest teachers, were the clients, and still are, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because I'm constantly learning from my clients as well.
Yeah.
So, and that is a big step. So I'm kind of going to bring in Andrew just briefly, because on the way in, we were talking about the fact that you have finished your 100 hours of placement, right? But what you were talking about earlier on with the fish balls, that's when you're practicing with your peers on your course. And then, so what was it like when you made that jump to your first client, from being just like, I'm doing fish balls, this is someone who I've got a dual relationship with, it's 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, so all of a sudden, real person, real issue, an hour?
I think it felt like it was everything leading up to what I've been training for, and I feel like I was absolutely terrified in the moment, because you go from, like you say, 15 to 20 minutes to a whole hour with someone you've never met before. It's all this responsibility. You get signed off, and like Rebekah was saying, there's a whole process, and then you finally get your placement, you're finally with your first client, and it's like, for me, it was like this huge imposter syndrome that took over, and I had to really do a lot of work with. Rebekah was actually my supervisor, and she just guided me on trusting myself, trusting my intuition, and then slowly but surely it sort of took route, really.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a huge difference, but. For me, I really enjoyed the real work. It felt like that was the real work, and the triads, which is another thing we might cover, and fish bowls, felt like role playing, like almost like acting. Yeah. And I'd done it because we had to actually do our level 3 as well in counselling skills before we even got onto the postgrad, and in that you've got to do your counselling skills as well, so it was like, when am I going to get to work with a real client? So when I finally did, it was brilliant.
Feels like you were just eager and ready to go. So got an image, even though that's not true because I don't have images, of like a starting line, and you're just at the starting line almost just ready to sprint up.
And they say to us on the course, actually, they say, you know, it's not a race, it's a marathon, and you take your time, and everyone's at different. It's not an equal playing field. You could be the first one in placement and be the last one to finish. So and
there's a lot of factors within that, and it feels like, from what you were saying, you felt like you sprinted it,
definitely,
rather than marathonized. Not even a real word. Marathonized it.
And I think that's something that we talked about in supervision, in that just because you can doesn't mean you should do or need to do it. You can go with your own pace. You can give yourself the grace to take it as it comes and kind of move through it.
Just because you should doesn't mean, just because you
just
could,
because you can doesn't mean you should.
You should. Jeff Goldblum, Jurassic Park, who, by the way, I'm off to see him tonight, and he's jazz band in Manchester, so that's all pertinent, Name dropping the Jeff, right?
We were talking about him before, so we've got Jeff on the brain.
We've got Jeff on the brain.
Not bad.
Jeff on the brain.
I haven't got a clue who he is.
I don't worry, I'll let you know.
We need to cut this out. Jeff, if you're watching, right, everybody, most people know who you are, right? We all love you, Jeff. You know.
We need to pause so we can watch Jurassic.
Right, we'll pause it. You can watch Jurassic Park
Yeah,
and fly.
I've seen Jurassic,
right?
so I must know who
Right,
he
you
is.
know him.
Yeah.
So.
Grand Budapest Hotel.
Grand
which I got
Grand
last night.
Budapest.
Yeah,
I think
well,
I've
there
seen
you go. Yeah,
Cut
so
that out as well.
no, well, you know, that's
Thanks for
fine.
not
We'll
attacking
keep
me,
it all in.
guys.
We
So-
will force feed you movie recommendations.
yeah, and actors from the 80s. So
Yeah, we're showing our age.
We're still going strong now.
Love
So, yeah. So anyway, right. I'm noticing we're kind of like got about 3 minutes left in this
Oh.
first episode, and it's been a bit disjointed, much like my morning. And but I'd like to touch back upon with you when we come back. You know, you've talked about your training, you've talked about sprinting out there, not
Yep.
marathonising it.
Yep.
Maybe a little bit of regret in that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to regret because it's brought me to where I am now.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a way of that I could have given myself that grace to learn at a pace that was
Yeah.
more patient
Yeah.
with myself.
Okay. And is that something that you often struggle with, having that patience with yourself?
Back then, definitely.
Yeah.
I think as well because I was a mature student returning, I felt very much like I couldn't remember the last time I'd sat and written an essay. I felt slightly out of depth of the whole process in and of itself.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the fish bowls, that sense, for me, it was less about how it was structured and even the dual relationships. It was the idea of being observed and assessed.
Yeah.
And even some of that slipped into my supervision and that the relationship was really important, but I always felt aware you're writing a report about me. And I had to get comfortable with that. And so I think there was an awful lot of feeling like I had to get it done, I had to do it properly. But actually, what I know now is the journey of it. I know we like that word as therapists, the journey.
Exactly.
But actually, the learning in the process is so important, not
Yeah.
just getting to the destination.
Yeah, it's like the journey is the holiday, really, rather than the place you're heading. So, okay,
Yeah.
right. So, and then with you, Andrew, see, know your name now. All you have to do is tell me once, right?
Yeah.
That's not a lie, I forget people's names all the time. But kind of like touch upon, because we've only just kind of like touched upon you having your first client and what it felt like for that, like more of your journey of kind of where you've got to now, because you said to me on the way in that you've got one more hurdle to kind of jump, and then you're fully qualified, and you can be left out there into the real world without the safety net of having a university there. So that's something else to explore about what that might feel like.
Yeah.
Okay, so, right, we've coming towards the end of the first one. So normally I'd play some kind of jazz trumpet or something, but I don't have one with me. I've got
Maybe
a
do a Jeff Golden.
Well, I'm going to go
piano.
diddling, diddling, diddling. That's just the way it is. Diddling, diddling. It'll never be the same.
that song.
Diddling. I don't know why. Nothing to do with Jeff. That. But anyway, let's just end it because it's all gone mad. Right?